Hi, in this video I'll show you how I'm trying to integrate Chatbot with RPA as I've shown in my previous video, making use of Google Dialogflow and Blue Prism as the RPA agent, and along with that I'm also trying to integrate with ServiceNow. So to give a better understanding, the chatbot will basically take the user queries based on the issues, and if it is able to resolve those issues with the use of RPA agent, it will call the Blue Prism RPA. If it does not able to solve the issue, then it will create an incident. It will ask the user if it can create the incident ticket. So it will call ServiceNow API to create an incident ticket. So let's first quickly go through the Dialogflow section. What is Dialogflow and how do we create this the basic chatbot? Basically, it's all about intents and entities. Here I have created a couple of intents where it starts with issue list. Let's say you can create your own intents and how you want to in what aspects and scope of your chatbot. Okay, so here I'm only keeping it to the basic, assuming the chatbot is only about the incidents and issues like IT help desk. So in the issue list intent, I'm adding the user expressions. Okay, this user expressions is what the user will type in different way. Like a different person will ask in different ways, so we have to put all those possible inputs here. So the chatbot will be trained based on those inputs, and it provides a appropriate response, which we also define at the bottom here. Once you give all the user expressions, you define a response for it. Okay, and in the Google Assistant you can create some interactive responses like giving buttons, images, small video clips, and there's a fulfillment section where you can enable webhook. Okay, I'll come to this webhook section in a moment. Let's go to our password reset section. This is where we use most of the action. So here it is a follow-up intent. Okay, in the password reset section there is a user expression where the user says I'm not able to log into certain application. So if it finds such input, then this intent will be identified. Okay, and there is a text responses, please choose an option. The reason is I have enabled Google Assistant chips. Okay, these are nothing but the buttons that you see when you talk to Google Assistant. So these are four options. If the user clicks any one of these, it will take to its particular intent. So let's check this raise IT ticket intent. In the raise IT ticket intent, I have only one user expression because that's a button. When the button is clicked, it comes to this intent. And then here enabled actions and parameters. This is nothing but the slots. Okay, so when the user enters certain input, there should be some required information for the chatbot. So to make that as a mandatory, we enable these actions and parameters, and we give certain text, and that will be stored in the variable parameters. This is one of the variable, as we can say. So and then the response is actually failed to raise incident ticket. Okay, the reason being, when we come down, I have enabled a webhook. Okay, webhook is nothing but your chatbot will try to connect to some other server when it finds certain input. Okay, certain input query or user expression. So that webhook is not, I have exposed my local server, my local system as my web server, and this is my public URL which I'm using in my Google Dialogflow, that you can see in the fulfillment section. I have enabled my public URL here. So basically your chatbot, your Google Dialogflow will listen to this URL if if you have enabled the webhook in your intents. All right, that is this. So this response will only be displayed if there is a failure to call your webhook, and your webhook has to you need to design the response in your webhook. Let's say if it's a successful query, then you have to return some text, which I'll be showing you in some time now. All right, so uh, I have enabled the webhook for this section, and let me show you the integrations. So Google Dialogflow will provide you very simple one-click integration to a lot of chat applications. So I'm making use of Google Assistant as default because it's very much fun to work with Google Assistant. So you can check out their documents on how to do these intents and entities in a much detailed description. So alright, let me show you the Blue Prism web services. These are two processes that I have already exposed as a web service. So I'll be making use of this password reset. This is just a simple process that I have created in Blue Prism, which will just log into some application, fetch the password, and some activities that we can perform just for the demo purpose. And for coming to this service now, I have created a developer instance where we can create and modify the incident tickets. uh, you can check their REST API section, which provides you great information and documents on how you can do API calls to create incidents and to get and post records. So I'm making use of post, where I want to create an incident ticket. So it's a good tutorial. You can just check out their documents. And this is my dashboard. This is where I can see the incidents that were created earlier. Let's just go and check how this is happening. So this is Blue Prism, and I have not run any process yet. So let's just go and use this try it now section, where you can you start writing your intents and you put the user expressions and responses. You can use this try it now section to immediately go and check how it works. So in the previous video I have used my cell phone, where I try to call Google Assistant, but here let's just stick to this try it now section. All right, now let's just start, and let me say hello. So here you can see the default response. So there are two responses that comes from here. If you have already defined a Google Assistant, then the Google Assistant response will also come. So this is a basic greeting intent. Let's And you can see the intent that was defined and what was the action. And for more information, you can click on this diagnostic information. So let, let's say a user has some issue in some application, and issue. So it will ask what is the exact issue that we have defined in our issue list intent. So this was the response. So if I say I'm not able to Citrix, and now it says please choose an option, which was our default response. But if I go and select actions on Google, so this gives me some buttons. Okay, so based on these buttons, it will connect to the specific intent. Let me say I'll click on raise IT ticket. Now it says okay, there's no action on Google, it's default response. It is asking me to enter the description of the issue. This is a mandatory field that we have defined in our actions and parameters. So I'll say this should be my description that goes into the ServiceNow API, and it is asking what is the severity of issue. Let's make it 3 and then enter. Okay, before entering I can see the context, and this is the follow-up intent, and description is already loaded, and our action defined is raise IT ticket. Okay, I'll press enter now. So let's do it again. Okay, failed to raise a incident ticket. That's because let's check out our it made a post request but it failed. The reason being I have not started my node server yet. Okay, let me take you through the code that I'm using. So this is the JavaScript code that I'm exposing for the webhook call. I'm listening to the webhook in this code. So here I'm listening to this IT raise IT ticket action. Okay, if the action is this, then I'll post an incident in ServiceNow API. So I'll just, this is a very basic implementation. You can check out this code in GitHub or in the ServiceNow REST API documents. So now I have to run this server. Let me just run it. Okay, so my server is listening now, and I'll go and do the same thing again. Let's just say I'm not able to log in. I have some issue, and I'm not able to log into Citrix. Choose an option, raise ID ticket. Okay, now if you see I'm printing these in my code. It is saying action is raise ID ticket, and I guess it is already completed. Let's go and check the incidents. I did a refresh and we should see our new incident ticket here. So this is very basic implementation. In the in your chatbot, you can also define to whom it has to be assigned. So okay, we have the response here, which is actually the incident number. Okay, let's just check that. This is the incident number that I'm returning, right? So that we have it in the response. So okay, this is very simple, that I'm raising an IT ticket in ServiceNow. Now let's check what is the RPA's role here. Suppose if this issue was not able to be resolved by RPA, then assume that you are designing in such a way that it will create an incident. So what if RPA can solve some issue? Let's now check out our password reset example. I'll go here and let me take the same example where I'll say I have some issue, and I will say I'm not able to log into Citrix, right? So here in the options, let's choose recover password. All right, so you can see that there's an application running and it got closed. Okay, if I show you Blue Prism here, the process got run, right? So it ran the process, and I guess it even, yeah, it even made a post request successfully. So if I go to my response, it says recovering password failed. That means the webhook failed. Okay, let me check this. Okay, there is some issue with there's a light delay in processing the request and sending it back to the Dialogflow. This there is some limitation with the timeout. So sometimes it fails to return the query, return the response in a time limit. So this is how you can tune your process, or you can look into the Blue Prism documentation on how to how better you can make it to give the response.